This is Gunderholfen. It's a mega dungeon and mini campaign sandbox setting for first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or OSRIC. You can pretty much use it with any old school role-playing system for fantasy games. This is the hardback print on demand from Drive-Thru. Got it about a week ago. Front cover, spine, back cover. The construction's what you'd expect from Drive-Thru hardbacks. If you are a player, you may want to stop watching this now. It's pretty much only going to be for DMs. This is the work of one person, G. Hawkins, who wrote, illustrated, and did all the cartography for it, which is impressive considering the scope. It starts right off the bat with a 2.5-page introduction, which details the history of this place. It is an ancient dwarven city that throughout the ages has been taken over by various monsters and factions, and its nearby town of Longfelt. So for a work of this size, it's a pretty brief introduction and overview. This is a 10-level mega dungeon with various sub-levels. There is a demi-plane off of one of the levels called the floating level. There are 3 ways into the mega dungeon. 3 entrances at level 1, and an entrance at level 5, and one at level 8. The 5th through 10th levels are all connected through a central shaft, with the upper levels on top of that. Between Longfelt and the dungeon is a swamp, the Ganfall Swamp. And this area kind of tells you here where to start this kind of mini campaign here. It gives you a rumors tables for Longfelt, some incentives or patrons or story hooks to kind of get you started. There's some quest items that NPCs may be looking for and willing to pay for. Give your players a reason to go into the dungeon. It gives you some further quick little plots or sub-intrigues to get you started. The Cult of Afra, or a Serpent Men cult, as well as NPC parties that may be rivals. In this notes for the GM section, he mentions that this module only details half of Gunderholfen. There are notes for Gunderholfen 2, a lost complex that may at some point surface. He goes into detailing the abbreviations used in the stat blocks. And importantly, he talks about how this module is designed to be written on. That gets into the design philosophy of this book, which is ease of use at the table. Usability is a key feature for this module. The stat blocks are short. The key areas are short. They get right to the point. He mentions how he will give you the first thing that your characters see or hear or smell when they come into an area, unless they are being attacked or there are actions that monsters or NPCs are taking that take precedence, or if the entrance to the room or area has something about it prior to the room itself. And then only after that does he get into the further description of the room, which is how things flow in game. As I mentioned, the stat blocks are pretty short, and he gives you a hit point tracker for each of the monsters. He gives you tactics as well. It gets you right exactly what you need to know. There's 3 kobolds attacking from the dark. It's the first thing that you're going to encounter. If any of them are killed, the remainder will run to area 14. Just gives you everything you need to know to run that room right away. And on the whole, this book is, even only having it a week, I get the sense and feeling that I could pretty much pick this up and run it at any point. So before I start to look at the rest of the book, I'm going to flip to the back. I'm actually going to start with the 2 appendices at the back here, Appendix 7 and Appendix 8. And the reason why I want to start with those is because these are both separately available on Drive-Thru as PDFs. There may be plans to do a soft cover each. And what's great about these is you could basically buy each of these themselves and not the rest of the module and have plenty of gaming material. So with the map pack, I'm going to start here. This hex is the area. There's Longfelt. There's Gunderholfen. This is the Ganfall Swamp. There's a ravine here called Baylor's Rest, which details how that happened. 2 of the ways into the dungeon are through that chasm. Each of these hexes are a mile. It's 30 miles across. So there's a nice little sandbox area to kind of work from and in. Here's maps of Longfelt. That gives you a district map. And you get a city street map with the street names. It gives you a cross section of Gunderholfen, the dungeon. Here are the first 4 levels. Here's levels 5 through 10. The central shaft is connecting all those. As I mentioned, there are 3 entrances into that first level. The first 4 levels are more your typical humanoid encounters, but things get weirder and more demonic as you get further down. There's an entrance at level 5 and level 8. Level 6 is a huge underground vast cavern. There's some water encounters. Level 7 is a Durgar stronghold, and it's off of that level that the floating level demiplane is. I'll just give you a quick overview of the maps. This is a kobold area, goblin area, hobgoblin area. Each of these have a way in. There's a way in here, way in here, a way in here. And the nice thing about this is these maps branch, and there are nice loops to provide interactivity, ways of following characters or NPCs, parties following each other. Just give you a brief idea. Here's level 5 where the central shaft starts and connects levels 5 through 10. I'm not going to go into each of these levels. It's too big to do that on a video. Here's the floating level, the demiplane, which is kind of like a elemental plane of air, maybe. It's egg-shaped. It's got floating islands. The islands have a settlement of its own, and there are demon creatures there as well. That just gives you a brief look. Appendix 7 is the encounter pack, and this gives you, starting off right away, 10 NPC parties, 1 for each level. And not only do they give you the stats of the party, their potential men-at-arms or henchmen, it gives you little descriptions of each, how they're aligned, what their motives might be, what they want. That's super helpful. Then after that, they give you a section with NPC characters for each class. And these are AD&D classes, so it's fighters, clerics, magic users of all different levels. Thieves, paladins, rangers, druids, illusionists, assassins, and bards. There's no monks, but you could use these as pre-gens as well. It gives you some encounters at Longfelt, in and around the city. There are day and night encounters, which are helpful. Things that are happening on the street, so that if your player characters walk out into the street and want to know what's happening, you can just do a quick roll and see, people accusing the PCs of something, stealing, improper behavior. It's designed to generate play, which is what you need. Along with the Longfelt and Surround encounter tables, you get an encounter table for the Gonfall Swamp, for Baylor's Rest, which is the kind of chasm outside the Mega Dungeon. Then you get encounter tables, the random encounter tables for each of the levels of the dungeon. So like I said, even if you only bought the map pack and this encounter, you could pretty much run one of these levels as a adventure for the night. Even if you never, if you're not a big Mega Dungeon fan, just the encounter pack and the map pack are worth checking out. And then towards the end here, you also get a summary of the major NPCs of the book, which is really helpful. And again, this is just a nice reference to have at the table, along with some supplemental rumors. So, with that, I'm going to go back to the front of the book, just take a quick peek through. And you'll notice all of these entries are fairly short, brief, to the point. The artwork throughout this is, in my opinion, really great. It's distinct, it's unique, it's personal. And although the first few levels are what you might call standard keep on the borderlands type humanoid encounters, there's real charm to how they're designed. And it's smart too. The tactics are smart. They're not just orcs in a hole. They actually have a reason for being there, and how they act makes sense given the context. It also has a lot of monsters from AD&D specific books, like Fiendfolio. Here's a Necrophidius. As well as new monsters, too. And there's an appendix for those new monsters we'll take a look at. There's a Mephit, another Fiendfolio monster. Flip through here. There are also a number of puzzles, an Odiug involved as well. Dark Creepers, another Fiendfolio monster. Which, in a lot of ways, makes this feel like a very 1979 to 1982 type of adventure. So it's set in a very specific AD&D. Another puzzle. There's a central shaft. And what's great about this is it doesn't have to be, this isn't necessarily the type of thing that you would have your players only play in. This could be used out throughout the campaign, where they maybe clear a level every few levels of character development. It's a new monster, a black ghoul. That's really cool. So the idea of this being is not something that they just spend their entire advancement in a level. This is a new monster called a Keelman, I believe. Kind of like a eel humanoid. Kind of a deep one, surrogate. And then level 6 here is where we get some of those water encounters. In that big cavern that I was talking about. Like a kraken. So the range of the types of creatures are also really interesting too. Here you have a Durgar's, undead Hydra, skeleton Hydra. Then here is the floating level, which is the demiplane, which kind of literally breathes air into the middle of the dungeon. Like it kind of brings some light into a dark place. And this is where you kind of start to get some of the demons, which are kind of themed later on. The floating level also features something really great. It features evil halflings, which I think are a terrific thing to feature in adventures. It kind of has a Don't Look Now kind of vibe to it, if you know that film. Cyclops. There's even a dragon, which is great. More NPCs to encounter. There's at least one demi-lich down here, along with these cultists, the priests of Afra, Spirit Naga. There is a wizard's library that's tucked away down on level 9 with a list of books that you could find there, which is great. And over the course of the campaign, you can introduce these elements and, you know, rumors about them, and later on they find them. And finally, you get down to level 10. I won't go into the story elements of what's down on level 10, but it features almost another near demi-plane down there. It's kind of a hell dimension that's kind of trapped in between planes. And that's it. We get to the appendices. The appendix 1 is the new monsters. There's a ton of new monsters here, which is great. Fully statted out for AD&D. Appendix 2 gives you new magic items. Appendix 3 details the Priests of Afra, the cult, built on serpent men. Gives you stats for them if you want to actually use them as a PC class with spell lists and some new spells. Appendix 4 gives you details about Longfeld, the city, and the surrounding areas, actual keys to places, shops, inns, places you might go. Appendix 5 actually gives you a side quest, little adventure, kind of an orcs in the tower in the swamp. It's just a couple pages, but it's a nice little side adventure. Some player handouts, and we're back at the encounter pack. So all in all, this is, in my opinion, a really great product. It costs $40-some for the print on demand, plus a little bit more just for along with the PDF. As of this recording, I think the print on demand is currently not available, but it's quickly coming back. The author did mention that he's just updating the file, so it should be available again soon. The PDF itself, I think, is only $10. So for 400 and some pages, you get all this content. If you play AD&D, if you play any OSRs, it's fully worth checking out.